stop complaining. It's gone. Those words felt like a knife twisting through my chest. My son, Adam, stood in my kitchen as if he owned it. Arms folded, face calm, eyes full of indifference. He didn't even flinch at the storm behind my silence. "You sold your father's watch?" I whispered, my hands still dripping from the dishwater, soap bubbles sliding down my wrist like tears. He shrugged. "Mom, it was just sitting there. I needed the cash." "Cash? For what?" "Our trip." Lily booked the flights. I looked at the coffee mug in my hand, Daniel's mug, and felt it tremble. My late husband's favorite cup, now holding nothing but memories. "You sold your father's Rolex without even asking me?" Adam rolled his eyes. "It's just a watch, Mom. Dad wouldn't want you stuck in the past. Just a watch. 6 months ago, I buried my husband of 43 years. That watch wasn't jewelry. It was his heartbeat. Every morning, I wound it the way Daniel taught me, a small ritual that made the silence of the house a little less unbearable." Lily, my daughter-in-law, looked up from her phone and smirked. "You really shouldn't cling to things, Evelyn. That's not healthy." "Don't tell me what Daniel would want," I thought, biting down the words before they could spill out. Adam's tone was casual. Too casual. "Golden Pawn on Lakeview Avenue. The guy gave me $800. Not bad for something that old. $800. My heart sank. That Rolex Submariner from 1978 was worth at least $3,000, maybe more. Daniel bought it the year Adam was born, after working 3 months of overtime. He wore it every single day of our marriage. The hospital had given it to me in a small plastic bag along with his wedding ring, the last things that still carried his touch. "It was worth more than that," I said quietly. "Not to me," Adam muttered. I could barely breathe. My own son had pawned the one thing that connected me to my husband. I'm going to get it back. Adam gave a half laugh. "Good luck." The pawn shop guy seemed eager to sell. "We're leaving tomorrow anyway. Maybe it's time you finally let go." When they left, the silence roared louder than any argument. I sat there for a long time, staring at Daniel's empty chair at the kitchen table, the faint smell of his cologne still lingering in the air. But I wasn't a woman who gave up easily. Not after 40 years as a bank manager, solving financial puzzles that men half my age couldn't understand. I grabbed my purse and car keys. If that pawn shop thought I was just another grieving widow, they were about to learn otherwise. The place was everything I expected. Dim, cluttered, smelling of metal and dust. A bell jingled as I entered, and a man with tattooed arms looked up from behind the counter. "You must be Mrs. Carter," he said before I even spoke. I froze. "How did you—" He gestured at the counter. "Your son told me you might show up. Said you're having a hard time letting go." I clenched my jaw. "I'll buy it back." He shook his head. "Sorry, ma'am. Already sold this morning. Paid in cash. No returns in this business." It felt like the air had been punched out of me. Some stranger was walking around the city wearing Daniel's watch, and I'd never see it again. But then the man hesitated. There was something odd about that watch. We found a hidden compartment in the back. Professionally done, too. Never seen anything like it. He disappeared into the back room and came out with a small brown envelope. Inside was a folded, yellowed piece of paper. On it, written in Daniel's careful handwriting, "Evelyn's birthday, July 9th, 1957, the day I knew I'd marry her." Below it, a strange string of letters and numbers, SS9821, CH0719DS. "What is this?" I whispered. The man shrugged. "No idea. Looked important, though." "Thought you might want it." I stared at the paper. Daniel never mentioned any hidden compartment. In 43 years, he'd never kept secrets. At least, I thought he hadn't. Whoever bought that watch didn't just want jewelry. They were after something. Something Daniel hid, and I was going to find out what it was. That night, sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the tiny paper with those numbers, SS9821, CH0719DS, glowing faintly in my mind like a code waiting to be solved. Daniel had been gone for half a year, but this felt like he was still talking to me, from somewhere beyond reach. By morning, I made up my mind. I set a cup of coffee on the table, in his mug, as always, and opened his old oak desk, the one that still smelled faintly of cedar and ink. For the next 3 hours, I went through decades of neatly labeled folders. Bank statements, insurance policies, pension plans, tax returns, all in perfect order. Daniel was a man who balanced life like a ledger, but nothing, not one document, matched that string of letters and numbers. I ran my fingers over his handwriting on the note again. Evelyn's birthday, July 9th, 1957, the day I knew I'd marry her. It wasn't just sentiment. Daniel didn't write things without purpose. The code beneath it had to mean something. My thoughts were interrupted by the shrill vibration of my phone. The caller ID made my stomach tighten. Adam. I considered letting it ring out. But some part of me, the mother part that still wanted to believe there was goodness left in him, answered. Mom, he said, voice sharp. Lily told me you went to the pawn shop. I did, I replied. The man said it's sold. It's gone. Good. Maybe now you can finally move on. I'm not moving on from your father's memory, I said softly. He left something behind, Adam, inside the watch. A message. There was silence on the other end, long enough for me to hear his quickened breathing. Then he asked too quickly, what kind of message? I'm not sure yet, I lied. Just a few numbers. Maybe an old password. His tone shifted immediately, from irritation to alert interest. Mom, listen. Don't mess with that stuff. It's probably nothing. Just old junk. My heart clenched. His sudden concern didn't sound like guilt. It sounded like fear. I'll figure it out myself, I said firmly, and hung up. I could almost feel him panicking on the other side of that call. By noon, the mystery had taken over every corner of my mind. I scribbled possibilities on notepads like a detective chasing ghosts. SS. Could be Swiss? Daniel's father was Swiss-American, and Daniel had always been fascinated by European investments. CH, maybe Chicago, where we lived all our lives. 0719, July 19th. Close to our wedding date. DS, my initials, it wasn't random. It was personal. I turned on my laptop and began searching through international banking directories. Daniel once worked for a firm that handled overseas investments. Nothing major. But he'd mentioned private accounts before. In the way people talk about crossword puzzles. Intriguing? Harmless. After an hour of digital digging, I stumbled upon a firm called Safe Shield International Holdings, a discreet financial institution based in the Cayman Islands. Their client numbers followed a familiar format: letters, city codes, and dates. My pulse quickened. I opened their website. The login page asked for a client number. Hands trembling, I typed SS9821CH8719DS. The page loaded. A message appeared on screen. Valid client ID. Please enter password. I froze. It worked. Daniel had an account I knew nothing about. What password would he use? Something only I'd know. I tried my birthday. Our anniversary. Our old address. Nothing. Then I remembered his note. Evelyn's birthday, July 9th, 1957. The day I knew I'd marry her. Not my actual birthday. It was the day we met. I typed 070957 and hit enter. The screen blinked, then opened to a dashboard filled with numbers that made my breath catch. Account balance 2612,485. Outer eye stared in disbelief. Daniel, my simple, frugal husband who clipped coupons and reused coffee filters, had hidden millions in a secret account. For years, I'd thought we were barely managing. Every argument about groceries, every careful budget. And all this time, he'd been quietly saving, or hiding, a fortune. My first reaction was anger. Then confusion. Then something colder, fear. Why hide it? And why leave clues only after his death? As I scrolled through the records, I saw transactions going back decades. Steady deposits, 500 here, 1,000 there, until a sharp increase about 2 years ago. Then, one last transaction made just 10 days before Daniel died. $25,000, property liquidation. Emergency transfer? Emergency? My fingers hovered over the mouse, trembling. That word didn't belong to a man who lived cautiously. It belonged to someone preparing for something, a storm, and I had the sinking feeling that the storm hadn't ended with Daniel's death. It had only just begun. The longer I stared at the glowing numbers on the screen, the colder the room seemed to grow. Nearly $2.5 million, hidden in an account I hadn't known existed. Daniel had built a secret life, and I had no idea why. At first, I told myself it was some kind of insurance, a nest egg he'd planned to surprise me with. But deep down, something didn't add up. Daniel wasn't reckless, and he wasn't secretive. He was deliberate. The kind of man who left detailed notes for grocery shopping and balanced every checkbook line. So why would he hide this? My eyes drifted to the last entry on the screen, $25,000. Property liquidation, emergency transfer. That word again, emergency. My husband had been preparing for something he never lived to explain. The next morning, I called in sick to my part-time job at the library. For the first time since the funeral, I felt like I had a purpose again. Not to grieve, but to uncover. I started digging through old files, trying to match Daniel's transactions with physical records. And then I found something strange. A folder labeled insurance policies tucked deep in the filing cabinet. Only when I opened it, there were no insurance documents inside. Instead, there were property deeds, contracts, and letters, all connected to real estate Daniel had apparently bought and sold over the years. One address caught my eye, 3231 Willow Drive. I didn't recognize it. I typed it into my laptop and my heart skipped. It was a small commercial property downtown, recently sold. The buyer's name made my stomach twist. AL Holdings, LLC, the same initials as my son, Adam Lewis. I sat back in my chair, pulse pounding. My husband's secret account, the emergency liquidation, the property sales, somehow they were tied to my son. My phone rang. Again, Adam, I hesitated before answering. Mom, he said, sounding almost cheerful. Just wanted to check if you're okay. Lily said you've been digging through Dad's old papers. I have, I said carefully. Your father kept good records. He gave a short laugh. Yeah, he was obsessive like that. Listen, Mom, I've been thinking, maybe I could come over. Help you go through everything. So you don't get overwhelmed. I stared at the phone. His words sounded kind, but his tone was wrong, like a salesman pretending to care about your comfort while calculating commission. That's thoughtful, I said. But I'm fine. Are you sure? His voice grew tighter. Because sometimes grief can make us imagine things that aren't there. There it was. The shift from concern to manipulation. I'd heard it before, in Lily's voice, in the way she'd told me to get therapy for missing my husband. Adam, I said, my voice firm. You sound worried. Should I be? He paused. What do you mean? About you. About your finances. The silence on the other end was so heavy it was almost a confession. Then he said too quickly, My finances are fine, Mom. I don't know what you're talking about. All right, I said softly. Then there's no need for you to come over. I have everything under control. He hung up without saying goodbye. For hours, I sat there staring at the file. My mind kept circling back to something Daniel once told me years ago when Adam was in college. Sometimes we protect people by not trusting them, Evelyn. At the time, I thought he meant strangers. Now I wasn't so sure. I returned to the SafeShield account and began scrolling through the older records. Most of the early deposits were small, $500, $1,000, even $200 at times. But after 2008, the numbers jumped. Tens of thousands flowing in every few months, always labeled property liquidation, and each sale led to a buyer's name with the same 3 letters, AL. When I reached the last line, a chill ran through me. Buyer, AL Holdings LLC. Authorized contact, Adam Lewis, my son. It wasn't coincidence. It was a trail. I grabbed my coat and keys and drove straight to Willow Drive, the last address Daniel sold. It was a small office building, 2 stories, brick exterior, quiet street. But a metal sign near the entrance confirmed what I feared. AL Holdings, Property Management. My son hadn't just been buying random buildings. He'd been acquiring every property Daniel sold before his death. Was it business? Or was he after something else? Something Daniel was trying to hide. Back in my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, heart hammering against my ribs. Then my phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. You shouldn't have opened the account. Mrs. Carter? I froze. Whoever sent that message knew my name, knew about the account, and clearly didn't mean well. Daniel's words from his note echoed in my mind like a whisper from beyond. The day I knew I'd marry her. Maybe that wasn't just a message of love. Maybe it was a warning, a breadcrumb trail leading me to the truth, and maybe Adam wasn't the only one watching me. The message on my phone glared up at me like a threat carved in light. You shouldn't have opened the account, Mrs. Carter. I stared at it for a long time, pulse thundering in my ears. The sender's number was unlisted. I called it anyway. It rang once, then went dead. Someone out there knew I had access to Daniel's secret. Someone who didn't want me to. I drove home faster than I should have, glancing in the rearview mirror every few blocks. Was that white sedan following me, or was my imagination feeding off fear? Either way, the city suddenly felt smaller, darker. When I pulled into my driveway, I didn't go inside immediately. I sat in the car, clutching my phone, staring at the house that once felt like a sanctuary. Now it looked like a stage, and I wasn't sure who was in the audience. Finally, I went inside and locked every door. The silence was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. I needed help. Not from Adam, not from Lily, but from someone who could tell me what Daniel had been hiding. That's when I remembered Thomas Chen. The name had appeared in one of Daniel's old files, a private investigator he'd hired years ago to look into financial irregularities. At the time, I'd assumed it was work-related. Now, I wasn't so sure. I found the number in Daniel's desk and dialed. Chen Investigations, a calm voice answered. This is Evelyn Carter, I said, trying to steady my voice. My husband, Daniel Carter, was a client of yours. I found your contact in his records. There was a brief pause. Yes, Mrs. Carter, the man said slowly. Your husband mentioned that you might call someday. I froze. He told you I would call? Yes, about 6 months before he passed. The room tilted for a second. Daniel had planned for this. I need to know what he was investigating, I said. Mr. Chen sighed quietly. It's not a simple story. Perhaps it's better we meet in person. My office, downtown, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll be there. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me flinch. I left a light on in the hallway like a child afraid of the dark. At 3 a.m., I checked the locks again. Everything was secure until I noticed the faint line of dirt near the back door. A footprint. Someone had been there. I grabbed Daniel's old revolver from the safe, the one he used to keep for protection. I hadn't touched it since the funeral, but suddenly it felt necessary. By morning, exhaustion clung to me like a fog, but I drove to Chen's office anyway. It was in a quiet brick building near the river. Professional but discreet. He was waiting when I arrived. A lean man in his late 50s, with sharp eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. Mrs. Carter, he greeted. Your husband was a very cautious man. That's one way to put it, I said, sitting across from him. Tell me what you know. Chen opened a thick file. Inside were documents, photos, and financial records. My husband's entire secret life spread across a polished desk. Daniel hired me 2 years ago, he began. He suspected someone close to him was trying to access his finances, through his business, through property, through you. Through me. I repeated, stunned. He nodded. Your son, Adam, my throat tightened. He's my son. He wouldn't. Chen slid a document toward me. This is a credit report showing Adam's debt to 3 offshore gambling sites. About $160,000 at the time of your husband's death? I shook my head in disbelief. No. He said he was investing. That's what gamblers say when they're losing, Chen replied gently. Your husband found out. He confronted Adam last year, and after that, Daniel began transferring assets out of reach, into the Safe Shield account you discovered. I stared at him. He was protecting me. Yes, and himself. He told me, if anything happens to me suddenly, Evelyn will need to know everything. He even left you a message. A message? Chen pulled a small USB drive from an envelope. He recorded it 3 months before his death. I was instructed to give it to you personally. My hands trembled as I took it. He knew he was going to die? Let's just say, Chen said quietly, he was worried about how far your son might go. Back home, I plugged the drive into my laptop. Daniel's face appeared on the screen, pale, thinner than I remembered, sitting at his office desk. Evelyn, if you're watching this... Something's gone wrong, my breath caught. I hoped you'd never need to see this. But Adam isn't who you think he is. He's been taking loans under false names, using our family assets as collateral. When I confronted him, he got angry. Too angry, Daniel paused, rubbing his temple. I started moving our assets into protected accounts, but if he realizes what I've done, he might do something desperate. Promise me, Evelyn, if anything happens to me, don't trust him. Don't tell him what you find. The screen went dark. I sat there in silence, my hands shaking. My husband hadn't died from random heart failure, as everyone said. Maybe he'd been helped along the way. Daniel's words echoed in my head for hours after the video ended. Promise me, Evelyn. Don't trust him. The man who never spoke in riddles had left me a final warning carved in truth. I sat frozen at my desk, staring at the dark laptop screen until my own reflection stared back. An older woman with tired eyes, finally realizing the people she loved most had been living behind masks. Adam had debts, lies, anger, and Daniel, the one man who'd always believed in fixing things quietly, had been afraid of his own son. I whispered to the empty room, "What did you do, Daniel? What did he do to you?" The question hung there like a ghost refusing to leave. That evening, I found myself doing what I used to do after Daniel's late shifts, standing by the window, waiting for headlights that would never appear. But this time they did. A silver SUV rolled slowly to a stop outside my house. I recognized it instantly. Adam's. My heart raced. He didn't even bother knocking. I heard the spare key turn in the lock, the one he'd kept for emergencies. "Mom?" His voice carried down the hallway. Calm, controlled, too calm. I stayed seated at Daniel's desk. The USB drive was still connected, the paused image of my husband's face frozen on the laptop screen. Adam stepped into the room, stopping short when he saw it. His jaw tightened. "What's that?" "Your father left me a message," I said quietly. He forced a smile. "Did he now?" "I'm guessing it's about money." "It's about you." He frowned, pretending not to understand. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Your gambling debts. The fake loans. The properties you bought under AL Holdings." He knew, Adam. He knew everything. The mask cracked for just a second. Then his expression hardened into something colder, something I'd never seen before. "You went through his files," he said slowly. "That was a mistake." "A mistake?" I repeated. "You stole your father's watch, pawned it, and lied to me." "I think we're past mistakes." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You don't understand. I was trying to fix things. Dad kept everything locked away. The money, the investments, even you. He made me look like a failure." "He tried to protect you," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "Even when you didn't deserve it." "Protect me?" Adam snapped. He protected himself. "Do you have any idea what kind of man he really was?" "He wasn't some saint, Mom. He was hiding money offshore, lying to the government. He left us nothing." "That's not true," I whispered. He smirked. "Then why don't you tell me where the money is?" "I know you found it. Lily saw the email from that Safe Shield company on your computer." I froze. My mind raced. Lily had been here last week, bringing groceries and pretending to be kind. She must have seen the open laptop screen. I realized then they'd been watching me for days. "Adam, listen to me. Whatever you think your father did, stop." His voice cut through mine like glass. "Just give me the login details and this will all be over." The threat in his tone was unmistakable. "I don't have them anymore." I lied. He took another step forward. "Don't lie to me, Mom." "Don't call me that," I snapped before I could stop myself. For a moment, he looked startled, like the little boy who used to run to me with scraped knees and bedtime stories. Then his eyes hardened again. "You think you can outsmart me?" He hissed. "You're old. You don't even know what kind of trouble you're in." He grabbed the USB drive from the laptop and yanked it out. "Whatever this is, it's mine now." I stood, my heart hammering. "Daniel recorded that to protect me." "Don't," he turned toward the door. "You should have stayed out of it." But he didn't see what I had in my other hand, Daniel's old revolver. "Stop," I said quietly. Adam froze. His shoulders stiffened. Slowly, he turned around, eyes wide with disbelief. "Mom?" "Put that down. Sit," I ordered. For the first time, he looked afraid. "I don't want to hurt you, Adam," I said. "But you need to understand, your father didn't hide that money from you. He hid it because of you, because he knew what you were capable of." He shook his head. "You don't know what you're saying." "I do," I said, tears blurring my vision. "He told me everything. You tried to take control of his accounts. You planned to have me declared incompetent." He flinched. He told you that?" "Not in words," I said softly. "But he didn't have to." The silence between us stretched, fragile as glass. Then a faint knock on the door made us both jump. Adam glanced at the hallway, jaw tight. "Who's that?" I kept the gun raised. "Why don't we find out together?" He hesitated. Then, without another word, he bolted toward the back of the house, disappearing out the kitchen door before I could react. My breath came in shallow bursts. The knocking grew louder. I crept toward the front door, revolver still in hand. "Mrs. Carter?" A calm voice called from outside. "It's Thomas Chen. We need to talk. Now." I lowered the gun and opened the door just enough to see his face. Pale. Serious. "What's happening?" I asked. He exhaled heavily. "You need to leave this house immediately. You're not safe here." Thomas Chen's words hit like cold rain. "You need to leave this house immediately. You're not safe here." My heart pounded. "Safe from who?" "Adam's gone." He shook his head. "You don't understand. I've been monitoring your husband's old files since you contacted me. Someone accessed Daniel's SafeShield account this morning using your credentials." I felt dizzy. "But I never—" "Exactly," Chen said grimly. "Someone else did. Whoever it was, they knew your password." My knees went weak. "Adam." "Most likely," he replied. "But it gets worse. A flagged transaction was initiated. A wire transfer to an account under AL Holdings." My stomach dropped. Adam was trying to take everything. Chen motioned toward his car. "Come with me. We'll go to my office. I have something your husband wanted you to see if this ever happened." I hesitated only a moment before following him. As we drove through the dim Chicago streets, I watched the city blur past. The same streets Daniel had walked every day, hiding a secret that was now tearing our family apart. Chen's office felt different this time, tense, urgent. He locked the door behind us, then opened a drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. "This arrived at my office 2 weeks after your husband's death," he said quietly. "It was delivered by a courier with no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Daniel's." He handed me the box. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was Daniel's watch. Not a replica. The real thing. The same one Adam had sold months ago. "How?" Chen smiled faintly. "Your husband was meticulous. He anticipated your son might steal it. So he had the original watch placed in storage and replaced it with a duplicate just before his death. The pawn shop never had the real one." I stared at it, the tears coming fast now. "He thought of everything." "Not everything," Chen said softly. "He couldn't stop what happened next." He pressed the watch's back panel, and to my shock, it opened, revealing another tiny compartment, even smaller than the first one the pawnshop found. Inside was a micro SD card. Chen slid it into his laptop. Folders appeared instantly, labeled recordings, transactions, and legal evidence. He clicked one file, the screen filled with video footage, my own kitchen. Adam and Lily sat at the table whispering. Lily: "Once she's declared incompetent, the court will hand you power of attorney." Adam: "Yeah, but we need proof she's unstable first. Maybe start spreading it around, forgetful, confused." My breath caught. "He recorded them?" Chen nodded. "For over a year. Audio, video, emails, everything. Daniel knew Adam and Lily were plotting against you, so he built a legal wall before they could act." He pulled out a sealed envelope from the same drawer. "And this is the final piece of his plan, his will, updated 3 weeks before his death." I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was Daniel's handwriting, neat as ever. If Evelyn is reading this, she has already proven stronger than I ever was. Everything I've built, the SafeShield account, the investments, the properties, belongs solely to her. Should Adam attempt to access any of it, the funds will be redirected automatically to charity. My love wasn't just in the words I said, but in the protections I left behind. Be free, Evelyn. Live your life without fear. Daniel. My tears blurred the ink. Every suspicion, every lonely night, all of it made sense now. Daniel hadn't just been keeping secrets. He'd been saving me. 3 days later, federal agents raided Adam's business. The wire transfer he'd tried to make triggered an alert built into Daniel's account, redirecting the stolen money to the St. Mary's Children's Hospital Fund under Daniel's name. The news spread fast. Businessman under investigation for fraudulent real estate deals. Lily took a plea deal. Adam was arrested. I didn't attend the trial. When Thomas called to confirm the sentencing, 2 years for financial fraud and elder abuse, I simply thanked him and hung up. There was nothing left to say. 6 months. Later, I stood outside the new Daniel Carter Memorial Wing at St. Mary's Hospital. The brass plaque gleamed under the morning sun. Funded by Evelyn Carter in loving memory of her husband. I traced my fingers over the engraved letters and smiled through tears. That night, back home, I sat on the porch overlooking the quiet lake. The real Rolex gleamed on my wrist, ticking softly, steady, alive. Every tick was Daniel's heartbeat. Every second a reminder that protection was love's truest language. The house no longer felt haunted. It felt guarded. A gentle knock broke my thoughts. I opened the door to find a familiar young face. Melissa, my granddaughter, Adam's daughter. "Grandma," she said softly, "I heard about everything. I'm so sorry." Her eyes, so much like Adam's, were filled with remorse and hope. "You have nothing to be sorry for," I said, pulling her into a hug. "The past ends with me." She smiled faintly. "Dad wrote me a letter from prison. He said you were stronger than both of us." I blinked back tears. "Your grandfather always said the same thing." As she left, the sunset painted the water in gold and rose, the same colors Daniel used to love. I turned the watch face toward the fading light. It still kept perfect time. Some loves don't end when a heartbeat stops. They keep ticking, quietly, faithfully, waiting for you to notice. And finally I had.